Does a narcissist actually believe their lies? Find out here today on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little button down in the corner, that little box down there, and it will take you straight to IGTV to watch this on replay here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me. I'm over on Instagram. I am at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live in the content, just like all these amazing people coming in right here, right now. Thank you all for being here today on Instagram Live. We also simulcast live over here on my Facebook page, so thank you guys for being here. I see Mary came in, and Goldie, and Wayne. Thank you all for being here today. And then we're also live over on my YouTube channel. So thank you guys for streaming. And by the way, YouTube is back today. My iPhone LED screen on the iPhone 10 that I use for that feed got busted yesterday, right before Jimmy Rants started. So it is back and live again today. So we're happy to have everybody here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live here on Instagram, we do have it on replay for you right after the show is done over at IGTV. So go check it out there. We also put the past episodes up over on YouTube. So type in Jimmy Rants as a keyword search and you will find the show. Finally, we have all the past episodes up at JimmyRants.com. That's the official website for this show. And if you like what you see here and you engage and you get good value out of what we do here, throw some value back to me. Click on that Patreon page, and really any donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. So today I want to take a little bit of a topic that's a bit off the beaten path of some of the things I talk about, but really Jimmy Rants, I talk about everything. So it's like there is no normal thing that I talk about. I didn't call it keto rants. I didn't call it fasting rants. I called it Jimmy Rants. And so whatever's interesting to Jimmy is what we talk about. And this topic here today really caught my attention because you can see evidence of it everywhere in our culture. And you've seen these people, especially online. When you go online, you're going to run into a whole lot of people that exhibit narcissism. So for those of you that aren't familiar with narcissism, this is someone who believes that they basically have all the answers, that the problems in their life is everybody else and not them. They can never be wrong. And they basically just have a self-absorbed concept of their own importance. So that's kind of a narcissist. And we all know these people in our lives. We got a lot of them in our family. I'm thinking of very specific family members right now. We have some of them, maybe not close friends, but some of them maybe within your like acquaintance circle. You know the people that are kind of full of themselves. Some would even say the person that runs the United States of America is one. So, I mean, we have so many examples all around us of people that are narcissists. And it sometimes leads people to believe, do these people really honestly believe they're infallible? Do they honestly believe that they never tell a lie and everything they say is truthful? And so I found an article out of Psychology Today. I read a lot of articles from Psychology Today because they have some great insights. And on this issue of narcissism, especially with all the people talking out there right now, and obviously you've seen a lot of the ugliness that's going on online right now, it's almost hard not to see people who are narcissistic. They're everywhere. So this article is, again, from Psychology Today. Does a narcissist believe his or her own lies? And I definitely want to hear from you guys and your experience with people in your life that have narcissism, how you deal with that. I definitely want to hear your examples of people in your life and how you deal with this. But this is a really fascinating insight into why people are this way. And it might shed some light as to maybe you never understood why they were this way. I really enjoyed this article, so I think you will too. It's a very short article, so there'll be plenty of time for us to talk at the end. All right. Narcissists live and die by their own version of the truth. Is it the truth if reality has been distorted? And this is the thing, guys. A narcissist can't bring themselves to accept when something is different than what they believe. And this is so hard, especially when you're trying to communicate messages to people. It's so hard to get through to someone who thinks their position is the right one, and there's no moving them off that position. Because when you become so convinced that you're infallible, so convinced that your way is the way, and that there's no other possible way to look at things, then you're immovable. And I would say you've become somewhat of you've become an ideologue. You basically said, this is it, and there's no discussion of it. You basically have removed every bit of scientific method out of whatever it is being discussed. So let's just apply it to some of the things happening in our world. So there's people who they just believe in their heart of hearts they're not going to wear a mask for whatever the reason out there. And so they have convinced themselves that that's the right position. And so because they've convinced themselves that they have the right position, when someone says, well, yeah, you really should put on a mask. No, that's wrong. Even though there could be a study that would come out and say, well, here's where mask wearing can help and blah, blah. No, that's wrong. And it's like you almost wonder, what is it in their brain chemistry, their brain wiring, that makes them believe their version of reality is truth? Even if it's a distorted reality in their brain, they still grasp onto it as truth. It can be a frustrating way to kind of circumnavigate this world. A narcissist just believes exactly what they believe is true and nothing more, nothing less. Extreme cognitive distortions and rigid unconscious defense mechanisms change a person's perception of an experience. And I wonder, people that turn to narcissism, I wonder how much of a role of traumatizing experiences in their life come into play. Because when you go through something pretty traumatic in your life, and that could run the gamut of all kinds of things, but something traumatic happens and something happens in people's brains that it kind of forces them, maybe, as it said here, an unconscious defense mechanism. Maybe they had to protect themselves in the midst of the trauma, and by protecting themselves, it made them have to be sure of themselves about things. Is that the birth of where narcissism came from? I don't know. It sounds like a plausible explanation, but it's certainly something that's for sure going to change that person's perception of any given experience. Paramount distortions and defenses are typically employed by a person with a narcissistic personality disorder. That is actually a medical term. Both alter reality in order to make it more palpable for a fragile ego. And here's the thing to remember. Narcissists come across as if they're strong. And most of the people that I know that are narcissists, they appear strong on the outside, but internally they're incredibly weak and insecure. And this is something to remember as people who are watching this right now. And if you just joined us, we're talking about narcissism and whether people believe their own lies and whether they actually believe that they're infallible. And yeah, they do. And it's not because they're strong. It's because the exact opposite. They have weakness and fragility on the inside. And the way you cover that up is pretend like and put forth this notion that you're strong on the outside. And so when you have this narcissism kind of rule your life, people around you think, oh wow, they have their act together. Wow, they always know everything, Not realizing internally these people are crumbling, mentally crumbling in their life, and yet they put up this wall of defense of narcissism to pretend like they have some sense of stability in their life. Because when things go haywire, that's when a narcissist certainly can't handle change. Because when you introduce change to a narcissist, you pretty much turn their world upside down, because their whole world is based on what they believe is true and nothing more. For example, say a narcissist loses a doubles tennis match. Instead of incurring the loss responsibly, The narcissist will tend to blow up at the partner and all the mistakes that they made and then minimize their role in the loss, denying the extent of his or her mistakes and then amplifying the partner's errors allows the narcissist freedom to deflect accountability for the loss and place the blame on the partner. And man, you know people like this. You know people who will just never admit that they did anything wrong. And you're thinking of very clear people in your own life, famous people that you know, politicians. There's people galore you can kind of identify this to. And it makes you wonder, what are they so afraid of in admitting faults? What are they so afraid of in seeing that there's wrong that is being done? Why does a narcissist always have to be right? What is harmful about admitting, okay, I made a mistake? What's wrong with saying, okay, I don't have all the answers? It's a fascinating subject, and I would love to know, like from some mental health professionals, what makes people's brains go there? And again, we know people just like this in our lives. And again, if you joined us late, narcissism is what we're talking about here today. And you know people in your life like this. Talk about the people in your life that are narcissist, have narcissism, and then tell us how you deal with that. Because it seems like a lot of people just throw their hands up in the air and these people become a laughing stock rather than getting help, rather than someone trying to help them work through it. I don't think anybody is wanting to confront people like this because they will blow up at you. And they will express the narcissism even more and blame everything on you. So it's kind of a funny subject. The narcissist protects a weak ego by deflecting. So when someone is challenging a narcissist, they won't take the blame. They'll deflect it. Oh, well, no, it wasn't me, it was this. Or it wasn't me, it was you. It wasn't me, it was him. And it's just going to become this deflecting. Projection, which again, projecting it onto something else besides themselves. Minimization, that's not a big deal. I don't know why you're making a big deal about that. Displacement, denial, flat out, no, it didn't happen, or blame. By unconsciously altering reality, the narcissist exonerates himself or herself. And again, I ask the question, to what end? Why would someone feel like taking the blame for something or admitting they were wrong about something is somehow a bad thing? To me, as a reasonable human being, if I made a mistake, then I will take it. And I will say, hey, look, I messed up. And I've had to do that many a time in my career being online. I've made some mistakes and I've had to come out with some mea culpas. And I've had to apologize publicly. And it's very humiliating to have to do that. But it's also very humbling. And here was the big thing. When you humble yourself and you admit fault and you admit you were wrong and you name the mistakes and the lessons you learned from it, guess what happens? Your reputation grows. People learn to appreciate you more. People see that you are wide awake in what you did and you admit fault. This is a lot of times what happens when people get caught up in scandals and they hold true to their belief about how things went. And they, Lance Armstrong. Recently, there was a documentary on ESPN about Lance Armstrong. And to this day, he's still defiant that he did anything wrong. And had Lance Armstrong just stood up and said, yeah, I took these performance-enhancing drugs. They helped me win some Tour de France's. I'm really sorry. At the time, I didn't feel like it was a big deal because a lot of people were taking those. But I now realize with hindsight and now looking back, wow, I really messed up. And I wish I had done things differently. Contrition. If he showed that, you guys, there's so many people that would have mad respect for him that they don't right now. They don't because he's keeping all of that animosity, all of that I have to be right-ism inside of him. And we know people just like this. And again, to what end? To what end? And see, here's the thing. Most narcissists have no idea they're narcissists. Most narcissists have no idea that they are a laughingstock to most people in their lives. And yet they keep being that way. In contrast to a narcissist's extreme and unconscious distortions and defenses, a person who works hard to be aware of cognitive distortions and defenses possesses insight. This is the kind of person I want to be. I recognize that I could have those tendencies to be that way if I wasn't careful and aware. I think once you're aware of what you're doing, I think we all have within us moments where we have narcissistic tendencies that we want to know that we're right, we think we're right. That's kind of a brain mechanism that makes you want to do that. But at some point, if you have evidence that comes in that contradicts what you have as your belief system, you're going to change if you're aware and conscious of that. And that's where insight comes in. But it's true narcissists that never budge off of what they believe that never truly get insight. What they get is propaganda. What they get is very monolithic thinking. These are the people that no matter what someone does, and if they agree with them, they'll always believe in them. And that's a dangerous kind of position. And think about it. We got a bunch of these kind of people in our society who all tend to think kind of a groupthink way. And you know these people. You know, they come up with, well, think about, let's do it in the diet world since that's my world. Dietitians. Many of them believe saturated fat is harming your health. And so they all kind of go on this same group thinking of, okay, saturated fat causes heart disease, so we need to tell our clients to avoid saturated fat. So that groupthink takes over. And then it becomes, if anybody says, well, what about this study that just came out in the Journal of the College of Cardiology that just came out that said saturated fat's really not anything to be concerned about. But oh, no. We know saturated fat is bad. So this knowledge of we're on this is our message. If you present anything that's off course of that, they're going to lose their lunch. And yet that's what narcissists do. They hold true to all the things they believe, and nothing is going to push them off of that. Those people never grow. Those people never offer any insight into the world. The people that offer the insights are the ones that keep an open mind and are willing to change when evidence is presented that has them change. And it's easy to do that. One hallmark of a person with a healthy defensive structure is, in fact, insight. Self-awareness and a capacity for introspection allows for a person to capture an honest and realistic gaze of themselves as well as the situation, resulting in an ability to sincerely admit faults, feel true remorse in their heart, learn from the mistake, and then evolve. And I've told you, I've had to do this many a time over the years. I've been online for over 15 years, and there's many times when I've had to do mea culpas. There was many years ago now, this is well over a decade ago, there was this diet company that was out there that I thought was helping people in a kind of forum type of format, and they were offering support for people. They pretended like they were a low-carb company, and they were giving support and offering all this. So I was one of the people helping to promote them because I thought they were doing a good job. Well, it turns out the lady that created it was scamming people out of their money. And so I found this out and immediately broke off ties, but I had to say, wait a minute, I was complicit in this. I needed to apologize to the people that I promoted it to. And so I shared that very publicly. I messed up, you guys. I should have vetted out this company a little bit better. And so you have to kind of humble yourself at times and feel that true remorse, admit the fault, learn from the mistake, and evolve. And that's what happened for me. I learned from that. And now everybody I associate my name with, I'm looking at them up, down, in between, sideways, you name it. So it helped me learn to be able to vet people out a little bit more, and I evolved. And so now here in 2020, I'm a much better person to be able to say, okay, when someone comes to me, I don't just carte blanche start promoting them if they kind of look like it. No, I want to vet them out. I really want to get to know who they are. The person may have a unique perception of an event, but it remains closely tied to reality because it's not impacted by a rigid, unconscious defensive structure or overactive distortion, which is what a narcissist would do. Unfortunately, all of this poses a problem. If a narcissist lacks insight and the ability to look inwardly, they may be unaware of their distortions. And this is the thing. People are like, okay, can't a narcissist see that they're being narcissistic? No. Sometimes you can be so deep that you don't even realize it. And again, I think all of us have that tendency within us to go in that direction. But what shifts us from narcissists is you become aware and you catch yourself before you go down that road. And so before you get deeply into believing you're always right and everybody else is wrong and and never admitting your faults, you catch yourself. And when you catch yourself, you're able to change. And when you change, there's insight that's from that change. And I would argue, again, that you gain better respect from your peers, the people around you, when they see you make an effort to shift away from this rigidness and more to an openness. People want people to be contrite. We do. And when you're contrite, you come across as humble. You come across as insightful, open-minded, willing to grow. A narcissist is none of those things. A narcissist shows no willingness to grow, shows no humility, shows none of these characteristics that everybody universally sees as desirable. And this is why narcissism is so hard for people to understand that are enlightened. And it's why these narcissists caught up in the midst of it don't even know it. How are they expected to be accountable if awareness of what they're doing doesn't even exist? I know people in my life, not close friends, but people I know, that they have never, ever done anything wrong in their mind. And their kids are bad. The kids all need to be punished because they're always bad. And the husband, always bad. And it's like, okay, when do you have any culpability here? Never? Okay, that's your first sign. If you think you never do anything wrong, that's your first sign that you're a narcissist. If they are not held responsible for their actions, they are free to blame and mistreat others when they are the culpable party. And this is the thing. This is why you don't want to ever show any kind of culpability or weakness, because once you start accepting some blame, then all of the excuses you have for why things are turned upside down in your life go away. You can't say, well, my life sucks because of all these other people and all these other circumstances, and there's no fingers pointing back, although literally when you point a finger at one person, there's 3 pointing back at you. And in this case, a narcissist, there's probably 10 or 20 fingers pointing back at that narcissist. And again, we know these people abundantly in our lives. And you kind of feel for them, don't you? Don't you have in your heart going, man, I wish I could wake them up. I wish I could get them to understand just how self-destructive that mode of thinking is. The answer to this question may be complicated, but it's enlightening. A narcissist may not be aware of his or her unconscious distortions and heightened defenses, but is somewhat cognizant of his or her behavior. Now, this is an interesting thing. They don't understand all the distortions that they're putting out there and the heightened defenses. No, it's not my fault. But they're aware somewhat about their behavior. I don't know how you see, because a lot of times these people's behavior becomes very erratic and they become very confrontational and they become very just erratic. They act in a very jarring way towards other people. And it's almost impossible not to notice that in yourself when you're doing that. But I wonder what goes through a narcissist's mind when they see that behavior and you're somewhat cognizant, oh my gosh, wow, I did that, but I don't do anything wrong. So and nobody's calling me out on it, so I guess it's okay. So I think maybe in the mind of the narcissist, they're like, okay, it kind of seems weird to me, but nobody's saying anything. So then it becomes accepted as if it's okay. So maybe those of us that aren't narcissistic and we see that behavior, maybe we're feeding into it a little bit by not confronting them, by not pointing this out because we don't want their wrath back on us. But maybe we're subconsciously reinforcing their own belief. You ever stop to think that? The problem is, in the narcissist's minds, the distortions justify the negative behavior. So they see the negative behavior happening, but they're like, well, this is happening, so therefore I'm righteously indignant, so I should lash out and I should have this bad behavior because it's justified because of the distortions they tell themselves in their minds about what they believe. A narcissist feels entitled to teach someone a lesson and frequently does so inappropriately. Think about those people. The kids these days on TikTok call them Karens. So we all know Karens in our lives. And something goes wrong at some business or whatever. I need to speak to your manager. Well, let me tell you all the problems. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Karen, go home. But they do. They want to teach a lesson. And I've heard many people, like they have a problem with some company and they'll call their customer service. Yes, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to your manager. And I'm going to blast it out there all over social media how horrible a company you are and you're going to live to regret the day. Narcissism at its purest, finest, worst. There it is. For example, say a narcissist believes she is a fair and equitable supervisor, yet due to her distorted black and white thinking, she idealizes several employees and then devalues others. When a disgruntled employee is tired of being treated poorly and asked to be transferred, the narcissist acts out in anger and with revenge. She contacts the employee's potential new supervisor and tries to sabotage their attempt to transfer. Keeping the person under their thumb, she continues to passive-aggressively punish the employee. And here's the thing. Narcissists love control. Because if you have control, you can manipulate situations and again, reinforce that you're the person that's always right. Everybody else all around you is always wrong. And so when you have this mentality, you love the power. You love the control. You love every aspect of being able to determine the outcome of things. This is why when things go out of control of a narcissist, they go crazy. Because a narcissist wants to totally be in control, totally make sure everything circumstance-wise is under their wishes and wants for their life. And if anything pushes it off of that, they don't handle that well. In this example, the narcissist is not aware of their part in the conflict. They're not conscious of idealizing and devaluing defense mechanisms, but is well aware of their actions and feels absolutely justified and entitled to behave the way she does. So this employee that wants to transfer away because of all the negativity and being treated poorly wants to transfer, they're rightfully wanting to transfer, but in the mind of that narcissist that's treating them bad, well, they're treated bad because they're horrible employees, I devalue them, and they're horrible, and so thus they're horrible, and thus they deserve to have my wrath down on them. You see how messed up this is? And yet this happens every single day. Every single day. You almost wish there could be like an alarm bell on a narcissist. Long before they come your way and open their mouth and you realize they're a narcissist, then you know what they are. So this makes it impossible to resolve a conflict with a narcissist. They stand by a distorted version of reality, which fuels a tendency to bully and mistreat other people. Again, that power thing. When a person offers a more realistic account, the narcissist reacts as if the person is lying, which is confounding. A narcissist always sees absolute truth as absolutely wrong. Because remember, in the narcissist's brain, they think they're absolutely right. So if someone actually presents truth to a narcissist, the narcissist has no choice but to call it a lie, even if it's very clearly not a lie. Is this fascinating, guys? Like sometimes you know these things on a kind of a subconscious level, but when you have it articulated and you kind of like hear it out and go, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I know people like this. Maybe this will help you understand some of these people in your life that act this way and be able to interact with them at least a little more understandingly about where their brain is. There are two instances when a narcissist appears to be accountable, but it's actually manipulating. Listen to this part, you guys. First, a narcissist often unconsciously incorporates a victim stance. So a lot of times a narcissist will say, woe is me. Oh my gosh, I have so many things that I know are right and people just don't believe. Oh my God. And so everything bad in their life has to do with other people and not of their own doing. And so they take on the role of victim. Oh, look at what these people have done to me. And thus I'm in a lesser position in my life because of all these other people. Sounds so good. And the bad thing on social media that I've noticed when you see an obvious narcissist doing this is all the people who go, oh, you look like you're in the right here. Oh, don't you worry, you're in the right. And so then they get reinforcement from these people, unbeknownst to them. They're reinforcing this narcissistic view of what people believe. Okay? And so it's bad. And it appears that they're trying to be accountable, but it's actually manipulative. The second is when a narcissist encounters a person who has more power than them, he or she is often giving lip service to being sorry, but does not really feel the remorse in their heart, as evidenced by they keep on misbehaving. So sometimes you'll see a narcissist who will show contrition over something that somebody pointed out that they did that's in authority over them. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And then they go back to being bad again. I think about those parents, for example, that abuse kids. And let's say, I don't know, CPS is called on them. CPS comes. Oh, we're here. We're such a wonderful family. Aren't we great? Oh, and they give lip service to being sorry. But then when the CPS person leaves and everything's done, they go back to being bad to the kid again. Narcissism. A narcissist might forget his wife's birthday. Confronted with the realization that there's no way to deflect accountability, they unconsciously are compelled to employ the victim stance. You didn't remind me it was your birthday, honey. All I do is work to support you, so no wonder I forgot. I work so hard for you, I don't even have time to remember anything else. Or, my ex forgot my birthday every year, so it really shouldn't be a big deal that I forgot your birthday this one time. You see how a narcissist takes their messing up and they try to blame it on the person that they messed up with? That's another telltale sign. If you joined us late, this is a great conversation today because we all know these people in our lives that are full of themselves and they think they're infallible and they are full-blown narcissists. So does a narcissist really believe they're always infallible? And yeah, they do. And it's debate whether it's some genetic that's going on, something genetic, maybe a traumatic event that might have triggered this. There's any number of reasons why people are narcissistic. But the point is they are. A second example, or wait a minute, I missed this. Although it may be true that he works hard or had an ex that forgot his birthday, the remainder of the rant in him, or is him playing the victim in order to escape responsibility. Because if you play the victim, you don't look like you're doing anything wrong. Oh my gosh, it's not my fault. Oh, I work so hard. No. By acting like he was the person who was wronged, he transfers the blame back to the victim, the real victim. Conveniently excusing his behavior, he pivots on a cognitive distortion and reinvents himself as the actual victim. And again, we see this play out over and over and over again. A second example of the narcissist appearing responsible, but not truly embodying sincere accountability, occurs when the person confronting him or her has more authority. The narcissist quickly will cower and grovel. It becomes clear the narcissist may not actually feel any kind of remorse, however, because he or she is readily engaged in the negative behavior behind the person's back. So someone with more authority comes in, like the CPS worker in that example I talked about. Oh, yes, it's such a beautiful family. My family adores me. Everything's wonderful. And then they go and everything's done and back to the bad behavior. Narcissist. When a hurtful behavior is repeated endlessly within the context of an interpersonal relationship, it is proof the person does not feel authentic and deep remorse for their selfish behavior. If you do bad behavior and then you're remorseful for it, but then you go back to doing the bad behavior, were you actually remorseful? Were you actually sorry? Or were you sorry you got caught? I think we know the answer. So the answer may be a whole lot more perplexing than the question. Yes, a narcissist is aware of his or her behavior, but unaware of the psychological mechanisms that compel and justify their behavior. Thus, an individual who has narcissistic personality disorder must be highly motivated to address the issue of compromised insight and introspection. And if he or she is unwilling, the mistreatment of the others may continue indefinitely. And I just wonder, they didn't address it in this article. I wonder how you get through to a narcissist. How do you get them to have insight and introspection and have their eyes open to what they're doing? Because that seems to be one of the hardest nuts to crack. Someone who is narcissistic, and then you point it out to them, even in that many words. Wow, you're so full of yourself. You realize you're a narcissist, right? You say that someone's a narcissist to a narcissist, they are going to be narcissistic back, and they'll say, no, you're the one that you're so full of yourself. You think you're right. You think you're all that. You watch. That's exactly what would happen. So reaching through to somebody like this is incredibly difficult. And I think what most of us who are reasonable, what we do is we just avoid narcissists. Because it's a whole lot better to avoid these people and not get caught up in their blame game. Because at some point, if you hang around a narcissist, you will be blamed for the woes in their life. I stubbed my toe. Well, if you hadn't have done this to me, I wouldn't have been in the situation where I would have stubbed my toe. Yeah, we've all been in those situations where people do that to us. And the good news is when you have the insights and you have the knowledge and you have the eyes wide open of what's happening when a narcissist is acting this way, you can act accordingly. I think the best thing you can do to a narcissist is make them stare truth in the face as much as possible. Because in my mind, the biggest way to kill a narcissistic attitude is to continually confront those people with truth. I mean, absolute truth. Not made up truth, not distorted versions of the truth. Truth. And once they get that truth and they see it enough, maybe, just maybe, that will jar them back into reality. All right, I want to see what you guys have to say about this very interesting Jimmy Rants here today. I'm going to go to Instagram first, then over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com, by the way, is the website. Check it out for all the past episodes. Cassia says, yes, they do really believe they're always infallible. Yeah, they do, unfortunately. Taking ownership and acknowledging you are wrong is such a humbling experience of growing. That's what I believe. So yeah, absolutely it is. And this is the thing. Most narcissists have no idea that when you take on humility and you take on a contriteness about when you're wrong about something, people think being wrong is the worst possible thing you can be. No, it's not. Being wrong happens all the time to all of us. And this is the thing that narcissists don't understand. Being wrong is not the end of the world. Being wrong and not admitting you were wrong is the worst thing you can do. Because when it's obvious to everybody around you that you were wrong, and yet you fail to take ownership of that, you look like a fool. And if people could just take ownership of when they're wrong, you do get humbled. You do grow from that. You gain wisdom from that. And isn't that what all of life is about, is collecting all of these experiences so that you can collect wisdom and become a better person as a result? Yeah. Otherwise, we're just going through the motions of life. So, good point, Cassia. Rachel says, while I'm pretty sure I'm not narcissistic, I know I can be better at receiving criticism. I think many of us can admit we could improve on that. Exactly, Rachel. And again, I think the fact that you even like notice that you might have those tendencies means you are awakened to it, and you're not truly a narcissist. A narcissist will not believe in any way, shape, form, or fashion that they possibly have any kind of narcissistic qualities. They don't. Because they're right. And so if they're right and they don't believe they have narcissistic qualities, telling them they have narcissistic qualities, no! And so they are deep in it. But the fact that you admit it, I think we all have those tendencies, but it's what you do with the tendencies that determines whether you have it or not. And yeah, good for you recognizing that. Beth says, I just popped in, although it says I thought you said pooped in. I just pooped in. Where'd you poop? It's been a while, and I miss the rants every day. Been going through a lot this month. We'll listen again later. Miss you. I've been missing you, Beth. I wondered where you went. But yeah, we're all going through some stuff in our lives right now. Some of us more than others, but all of us going through the COVID stuff. It's just really bad. So thank you, Instagram. I'm going to pop over here now to my Facebook page. What's up, guys? Thanks for being here today on Jimmy Rants. See what you have to say on this one. Narcissists never think they are infallible. The question makes the assumption. That's true. They also think that everything they believe, thank you, Wayne, everything they believe is absolutely true, because they're not wrong. So in a way, they do think they're infallible. Yeah, I'm thinking your comment through a little bit. A narcissist never thinks they're infallible. The question makes the assumption. Well, I think it's a safe assumption, because the very definition of a narcissist is someone who thinks they do no wrong. And so if you think you do no wrong, then that means you think you're infallible. But maybe you don't think of it in that many words, because that would be narcissistic, and you're not self-aware that you're narcissistic. Yeah, we're getting really deep with this one. But I like your mode of thinking. Thank you for that. Do you believe these traits are hereditary, says Terry? It could be. I haven't really seen any research per se that shows that a narcissistic grandfather passes it on to a narcissistic dad, which then passes it on to a narcissistic son. But I would be very interested in knowing if there's some kind of a gene component here. I don't know, as to be honest. I wonder how much of it is a learned behavior. Maybe you had a narcissistic dad and you didn't inherit it genetically, but you inherited it environmentally by being exposed to a narcissist. I don't know how someone can be exposed to a narcissist and become a narcissist themselves, unless you already have that tendency. Or if you're a kid and you notice your mom or dad is a narcissist, then you say, wow, they seemed to always get their way, so let me always believe that I'm right and I'll always get my way. So it could be a learned behavior. It's a fascinating question. I definitely need to dig into that research a little bit more on that. Tracy said, I was the victim of a narcissist. It was a horrible experience. They simply cannot be fixed. I believe they have always been that way, and they just blend in. They make you feel bad to make themselves feel better. A book that helped me was called The Sociopath Next Door. Thank you for that book recommendation. Yeah, and I wonder how much of this is a mental health disorder. And I wonder, since I talk about nutrition, would a ketogenic diet help a narcissist? I don't know. If it's truly a chemical thing in their brain and not some behavioral thing that's apart from a chemical brain thing, would a ketogenic diet or would anything that would enhance brain health help? I don't know. Anna says, I have a narcissist in my family. The best thing to do is drop them. Well, sadly, that's true. They have lots of insecurities, I think. Oh, yeah, that's the hallmark of a narcissist, is insecurities. Tracy says, if you prove a narcissist wrong, they lose it. There are so many of them out there. And again, a lot of them hang out on social media forums. So I would say if you run into a narcissist on social media, you guys, don't engage that person. Let them have their say and move on, or otherwise you're going to get in their line of fire. Terry says, dropping a parent is hard to do. Honestly, I did that this year. My dad is indeed a narcissist. I hate to say it. And when I started talking about some of my childhood trauma, my dad called my mom after 12 years and said, hey, I think our son is saying lies about how I treated him when he was a kid, da-da-da. Of course, my mom knows the whole story by now. He was so denying that he did anything wrong. That's a telltale sign of narcissism. So I cut him off. I don't even talk to him. Welcome to my world. I know what you mean, says Rob. Yes, when they point the finger at you, 1 points to them, the thumb to God, and 3 back at them. Exactly. Tracy says, honestly, you really can't fix them. After reading up on it, I have found this out. I just had to walk away from the person and not have any dealings with them at all. Their brain does not work like most people's brains. And again, I wonder if that brain could be fixed, either with nutrition, with therapy. I don't know how you reach a narcissist. Oh, and by the way, this one friend I'm thinking of that has a family, full-on narcissist, has tried therapy 3 times. All 3 times. Didn't work. Went to like 1 or 2 sessions. Didn't work. And the therapist had confronted her about, you're kind of the problem in the family. It's not your kids, it's you. And she didn't like that. And it didn't work. So I'm beginning to believe that, Tracy, that you probably can't reach those people, but I wonder what could reach them. What could help change them? The person I thought was my friend tried to get me fired. She was proven wrong and eventually got let go. Mandy says, that was so awful for you. I thought it was weird. That person never got back to me after we talked about the West Coast. My husband tells me all the time to quit apologizing for things I didn't do. Yeah, that's a girl thing. I've noticed that a lot of girls do tend to want to apologize all the time, and it's just your tender heart. Someone else bumping into me. Oh, I'm sorry when someone else bumps into you. Yeah. I know lots of people just like you, Mandy. So you're the opposite of narcissist. You're the anti-narcissist because you take blame for things that you didn't do. All this sounds so familiar, she says. Yes, sadly, I think this is more familiar and more common than we want to give it credence for, which is one reason I wanted to do a Jimmy Rants on this here today. So thank you, Facebook. Let me pop over here to YouTube. Lots of questions, comments came in over here. Let's see. It's just like my aunt says, Johanna, when I had my twins at the age of 38, I did everything wrong. By her point of view, she knew everything much better than I did. By the way, I have no longer anything to do with her. Well, that's sad. My twins are 9 years old now. That's too bad. Shirley says, this is also very true. Narcissists are never wrong. I've lost track of how many times I've told the narcissist in my life that they're blind about the whole thing, and they claim just to be open-minded. Wow, that sucks. Johanna says, yes, I mean, never anything bad. Okay, that makes everything better. I never mean anything bad. Oh, so yeah, they say that to you. That's true. Harpsy says, an interesting rant. Thank you. Edith says the keto diet would not help them. The reality diet might help. 20 grams or less of Facebook. 70% intervention and the rest no contact. Their brains can't be fixed. I forget to eliminate justifications from the behavioral diet. It's all about control for their lack of egotistical substance. Interesting. Harpsy says, I have heard that poor sleep quality results in paranoia, Many of us on a sad diet suffer from a lack of normal sleep. One of our first improvements is better sleep. Could that be narcissism? Maybe. I love the way you're thinking there. Terry says, I have a tender heart. I think those of us that have a tender heart, we have a tough time with narcissists because narcissists tend to be a lot more aggressive and a lot more forceful in their beliefs. Kira says, as an empath, I am always at risk of abuse. Yes. So just be aware of that. If you're someone who has a tender heart, you're an empath, that these narcissists, they don't care about your feelings. And so I consider myself an empath as well. I feel other people. So when someone is quite aggressive back at me, I'm a little stronger because of the things I've been through, but it's still tough to see. What did Edith say? It's self-preservation. Yeah. They do anything to make themselves look good and to always save face for themselves. So thank you, YouTube. All right, let's back over here to Instagram. So you got any final thoughts? And yeah, I see none. So guys, narcissists, they are out there everywhere. And I think if we're aware of them and what their behavior is and realizing they're probably not going to change and they're probably always going to think they're infallible. We've gotten some good advice today. You probably need to cut those people off. I think you need to confront them with truth, even if they come back at you, and they will. They'll come back at you and blame you for all the woes in their life. Confront narcissists with truth often enough, and maybe, just maybe, you could open their eyes, open their ears, and get them to think and actually see for the first time in their whole lives what they're doing. And maybe that will create this opening that will get them to be self-aware of what they're doing, and that's when insight and wisdom can come. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me right here on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LivinLowCarbMan. Once you're there, engage live. We are live Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so go check it out. We also simulcast over here on my Facebook page, as well as my YouTube channel. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you miss a live, you can watch it on replay right here on IGTV. Shortly after the show is over, we will put that up. We also have it on replay over at YouTube. Type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. And then finally, go to JimmyRants.com, the official website for this show. You can see all the past episodes. And if you get value out of what we do here, definitely click on that Patreon link. And really, any donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. So guys, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back again real soon. Bye. All right.